My name is Witchard, and one of my interests is the representation of China and Chinese people in Britain. For example, Thomas Berke painted a picture of a place that had this sort of glamorous, illicit attraction that came directly from press reports about love affairs between yellow men and white women. So he's really doing something rather subversive. He's giving this picture of Chinatown as a realm of eroticism and sensuality, and that gets picked up in the movies then, and you know, you get the opium den scenes, which are really elaborate. And whereas Romer's fantasy grew out of a sort of late Victorian impending war fear or invasion fear, so you know, the idea of hordes of yellow men invading the West, that's where Fu Manchu comes out of.
The world will hear from me again.
Very, very little in an authentic Chinese voice, because many of these men wouldn't speak English anyway, the Limehouse workers, and they were transient, so they would come on a ship and wait for another ship to go out. So most of the representation is from British writers' interpretation, and they would always have an agenda. But what you do read, for example, in the fiction of the Chinese writer Lao She, was how distressingly they were affected by the Yellow Peril fiction and media of the times. He writes about Chinese characters who have come to London and their interactions with local people, and the way that the media affects the white Londoners amongst them, their attitudes to them. So it's a really illuminating novel to read. And of course you've got to think that there are different classes of Chinese people in London. So there are the working people who live in and around Limehouse, and probably the next biggest body of Chinese people are the students. And they would have a slightly different experience, but nevertheless I think that all fed into a very negative point of view, which must have affected the people then.